Is that a Game Boy in your pocket, or are you just happy to see us?
Hey, man. Hey. Hey, y'all. Welcome to Power and Reset. All right, we on episode 2. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about handheld gaming. I don't know if you guys know about handhelds, but they've been around.
In your hand.
You hold them in your hand. You push some buttons. You know, you might see a little something on the screen. But they've been around for a long, long time. It's Power and Reset. We got myself, Reset. I got my co-host, my amazing co-host here, Power.
Hello.
Power. Give me power.
Power.
What up, man? How you doing today?
I'm
hey,
just,
I like your little high note there, man. Hey, you was really hitting that.
I was just reflecting on that.
Give it to me one time.
I was good, but I lost it a little bit there. So, but I don't know how I am anymore. We'll see.
Hey, man, Hey, Power, you got a beautiful voice, man. You got a. I know you like to talk deep, but when you hit that high note.
Look, I usually keep it low, but sometimes you just gotta go high.
Hey, you just gotta go high, man. You know, how you doing, man? You doing well today?
Man, I'm good. I'm doing well. I'm feeling ready to dive into the handheld. You know,
cool.
Handheld gaming. I'm ready to hold the history of it in my hands, just like I did with my Game Boy back in the day. How about you?
Look, I don't know what you was holding in your hands, but I know one thing. We got a lot to discuss here. You and I have been gamers for a long time. Since 1990 and 1991, we have been gaming since we popped out of our mothers. Yep. They handed me a Game Boy as soon as I came out the window. I was like, here, take it, boy.
Yeah, I came out with one.
Yeah. Oh, you already? Wow, she put it in. Okay, so anyway, so for you viewers out there, we're not going to talk about necessarily the history of handhelding or handheld games, I should say. So we're not going to start with the quote-unquote Microvision or the Game & Watch. I didn't play that. Sam, did you play the Game & Watch?
No, this was before my time.
So for y'all purists or whatever, the handheld gaming start. Shut up, get out of here. No, I'm kidding. Stay. But we're not going to be talking.
All dead anyway.
Right. Oh damn. So, but we don't listen to him. We're not going to talk about that today, y'all. We going to start with the Game Boy because I know that was at least I am. That was my first handheld ever.
Same here.
Same for you.
Yep.
So I'm excited to talk about it. Man, the Game Boy. You know, came out technically in '89.
Now this was the original Game Boy.
Oh, OG.
And here's what I think. To me, a lot of people mix up. They think about like the Game Boy Color.
Oh,
or some people are like Game Boy Advance because depending on when you got into gaming, like you might even be like Game Boy. That's like a relic.
Right,
I started on the DS or like the.
For
but
real.
like no, like
for real.
I mean, we're talking about the original Game Boy. Now this thing. I mean, it was like a brick. This thing was up there with the Nokia in terms of surviving anything, but it was that thick with the the pinky purpley buttons. It had you couldn't even see the screen if it was too bright or too dark. You couldn't even see the screen.
When I put batteries in my original OG Game Boy, it was like I had to undress it, man. I had to take my double A's. I popped them suckers in the back,
that case off.
And then I popped the power switch on. It was sensual, man. It was sexual.
Oh, and when it lit up for you, it was.
Hey, it didn't light up. Look, that thing was that thing barely had any color at all. I think it was all green or something like that. Pikachu showed up. He looked like a freaking gremlin. Hey, it wasn't pretty.
But when you would flip that switch and you would turn it on.
Yes. I loved it, man. I loved the Game Boy. I definitely started with the Game Boy. I honestly can't recall how I started with one. I want to say my sister had one, and then maybe I got one through her. I really don't remember. But I know one thing. I was playing, I want to say Pokemon Yellow on that sucker, which I believe had no color. I could be wrong, but I believe it had no color, and I loved it, man. It was just so freaking cool. Like, I never, as a kid, thought I would be able to carry a game into my classroom and not pay attention and just play video games.
Yeah, oh.
I wished it every day.
Yeah.
I wish that I could just tune out on my teachers and play video games.
Can't I just take video games with me?
Man, and Nintendo was like, yes, you can. They were like, don't worry about learning. Just sit in your class.
We got you.
Look on the side. Go down your. I'm left-handed, so go down your left side. Keep that game low.
Keep
keep
the
volume
under
down.
the desk in that little place that was supposed to be for your binders.
Man, I was supposed to be learning, whatever, mathematics. I was learning how to capture me a centipede. Or a sand shoe, or I was focused on I wasn't focused on graduating whatever 5th grade. I was focused on catching me a Mew.
But you better make sure you bring at least like 18 AA batteries with you, because you might only get through about a third of the period with once.
And it did not autosave.
Man, I remember exactly how I got a Game Boy, because it was so weird. Because when I was a kid, my parents were not big on having video game systems in the house, so I had to go to my friends' places and I had to get my experiences. I had to play the kiosks at like EB Games and. I like all those, and then my next door neighbor, we were friends at the time, and he had one. I don't know how he got it, but he didn't like it. Which I know,
what?
Right? He had a Game Boy, and he didn't want it. And so I remember I was over there one day, and he was like, "Oh, like we were talking. It came up. We were talking about the Game Boy, and I was like, it seems so cool." He was like, "Oh yeah, I have one." And I was like, "You have a Game Boy?" And he brought it out, and I mean, I was like, this is so cool, and I was playing around with it, and he was like, man, I mean, like, you want it? And I was like, yeah, you don't?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want it. And he was like, yeah, that's fine. Like, here, take it. Here are the games. So he had 2 games. He had The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening and Tetris. Ooh. So I started with Tetris because I was like, oh, like, all right, well, let me play a little, moving those pieces, playing Tetris. But then I popped in Link's Awakening, which this was the first this was the first Zelda game. I hadn't played the original Legend of Zelda at this point. I didn't really know what Zelda was. I was really young at this time, because Link's Awakening came out in '93. Okay. And I think I got this Game Boy. I was probably 4 or 5 years old, and so I popped in Link's Awakening, and this was, by the way, an open world game. Okay. This was a game where you just, it threw you in there, and it didn't tell you what to do. You just had to start wandering around, and you could swipe your sword.
I do recall
and then you could
this.
you're like, wait a minute, if I spin, I can if I hold it down, I charge it. And so 4-year-old me, it was blowing my mind. I was just you really had it was the limits of my ability and my creative and cognitive skill as a 4-year-old to figure out how to play this game and explore and figure out where I needed to go and how to beat these bosses. But so that's how I got my first handheld.
Damn, man. Hey, let me just make this clear though, right? So the Game Boy came out in 1989, right? For us, I think it was 1990. Whatever it was. This crazy ass kid that you knew, this stupid little boy, whoever you are, man, I wish you knew his name so I could shout him out right now. You a stupid idiot. This kid gave you his Game Boy. Let me just explain something to you real quick. Let me just make this clear. The Game Boy released at $89.99, right? $89.99, right? That was the price. You know how much do you think that's worth today? If you had to guess, Power.
Man, okay. I mean, I'm just gonna say what, $150?
$200 damn dollars. $193.83 if you want to be specific. This kid just I'm not really into catching Pokemon. I guess $200 right here. My parents slaved over this.
Yeah. My parents bought me a $200 device, and then the games.
Man, am I gonna give an iPhone away today? I don't think so. iPhone is way more expensive.
Not unless you all follow this podcast, tell your friends about it.
Right. So, yeah, man. So here's my history with was it Link's Awakening or
Yep.
Was that the first one, Link's Awakening?
No, so I think that was the 4th one.
What was the first one called?
Well, so the first one was just Legend of Zelda.
Okay, what was the one that came out later on? It was similar. It was open world. It's the most popular one. Was it Link to the Past? That's when I first got into Zelda. That was the first Zelda I ever played. And then I couldn't understand it. And it wasn't until I beat Ocarina of Time that I went back to beat it. I don't remember what... I don't know if that was... I feel like that was Game Boy Color that that one came out for. I can't recall. But it was amazing, man. If it was for Game Boy, that was like my favorite game.
I want to say you're right. I think A Link to the Past was Color.
It was Game Boy Color? Man, so, all right. So, full disclosure, right? Like I said, I don't recall how I got my Game Boy. I think I got it from my sister. But I do recall going, I believe it was to Funkoland. And I got a purple. It was like a beautiful purple Game Boy Color.
Yeah.
The thing was sexy, man.
See, mine was green. I remember that.
Because back then, when they bopped out like, hey, guys, we're going to have some color. Oh, it was green, red, orange. I mean, there was so many colors that you and all your friends was just sitting there. Oh, I got this, I got that. It was cool. It got so crazy, man. We was trading Game Boys like Pokemon cards. Like, oh, I want the red. Cool, I'll trade you my green. Whatever. And but I remember having it in just the color alone. I believe it was the same exact design. Maybe it was a little slimmer. But I freaking loved it, man. I loved seeing color in my hands versus that plain old gray. And seeing color on my screen. I'm going to be honest. I paid so much money for add-ons as well for the Game Boy Color. I had a little light that I would plug in, and I would hang over.
Magnifying screen,
magnifier,
you had the extra grips.
Yes, grips. I had like a battery pack. I had so many things for that system, and I also had so many games that were awful. They were awful. Like, look, if you were playing Pokemon, good for you. The game was sweet. But if you had, I had one that was. Man, I wish I could remember the name. I honestly can't, Power, but it was similar to, if you've ever played Custom Robo, it was very similar.
Good old game for the GameCube.
Yes.
If you haven't, take a look at it. Very unique game.
Very unique.
Arena-type combat, robots, customization.
One of these episodes are going to come back and be like, this is the game I was talking about. But it was a similar game. You fought with these like little robots, and it was impossible. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the delay in the controls because the Game Boy's so old. Maybe it was the screen and the frames. I could not win a match in that game, and I felt like that was always the case when I was playing fighting games on the Game Boy. Like I was always I would lose. But for games like Zelda, for games where it was more open world, I had a great time.
I mean, I remember there were some.
I think was on
there were some unbelievably challenging games for when we were in that Game Boy Color era, and I remember. I think specifically there was a game for Game Boy Color and it was a Turok game.
Oh yeah,
and it was I don't remember. It was either like the first one like Turok or it was like Turok 2.
Yeah.
But I just remember, and this game was so difficult. And it was just one, like, for me at the time, whatever it was, that just getting through, because you'd be going through these like platformer style levels, and you just have these like velociraptors coming at you, and I couldn't do it. It was that era where there were so many just either challenging or bad or just games that were like not well developed and like quickly rushed out. They were like clones of the popular series.
Yeah.
But then they came out with the Game Boy Advance.
Ooh, man, don't get me started, man.
And here's the thing. First of all, let me just say, for like handheld games, especially that era,
right,
one of the things that I loved the most was cartridges.
Oh.
Because it was like, it was handheld. It was on the go. You had this device in your pocket that you were carrying around with you, but then you had your collection of cartridges. And the satisfying just like popping out one, popping in the other, but then you'd be with your friends and you'd have to pull out your backpack or your fanny pack or whatever you had at the time in the 90s, and you just pull out this like pile of cartridges, and the more you had, it was like pulling out like gold bars in front of your friends. Your friends would just be like, no way, like you've got like 5 other games.
Hey, look.
And they'd start looking through them and you'd be like, I tell you what, I'll loan you this one if you loan me that one. Like, I want your DBZ, like Goku's Journey for like your, Pokemon Ruby or whatever.
And some of those cartridges had like see-through plastic and
they were
different
that like
colors.
translucent, like red.
Man, it was incredible. I gotta correct myself. A Link to the Past actually came out for the NES. That's what that came out for. I think the one I was thinking of was either Four Swords or Oracles. I think it was Oracles was the one that I played on Game Boy. Just popped in my mind there. But man, the Game Boy Advance had some freaking phenomenal games. I played Pokemon Emerald on there.
Some of the best, yeah. Silver. Silver and Gold were Game Boy.
They were. Sapphire, Ruby.
Yeah, Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald.
Man, there were so many good ones, man. I had Mario Kart, which sucked.
Yeah. There were some games that did not move over well.
Yeah.
But at that, and man, speaking of Pokemon, one of the most fun things about the handheld at that time was, you got those link cables. And so you'd get together with your friends, you'd all be playing you'd have Ruby, I'd have Sapphire, and then you'd be like, okay, let's plug them in together, and now we got to go to the little Pokemon Center and like initiate the trade, and I'm gonna trade you this one, and you're gonna trade me that one.
Hey, shout out to Nintendo, man, y'all the best scam artists I ever heard of. These guys were selling all different types of accessories for you to play with your friends and do all this stuff. You could I don't know if it was the game. I think it was the Game Boy Advance. There was something you could plug into even your GameCube that would allow you to play like Four Swords
Game Boy Advance games on the GameCube.
Man, they knew how to work the system. God bless them, because they made some of the best games. But I had hella accessories. I cannot lie to you. I had so many accessories for my Game Boy. I remember I had a little box, and there were just cables and cables of
cables.
I can't even tell you what
attachments
to this and that, and link cables, like you're saying. Like, there was just so much stuff.
There were like cartridges that had rumble packs in them.
Absolutely.
So you would plug in the cartridge, and it needed its own battery. It like stuck out of the top of the Game Boy. You had to put a battery in it, and then it would like vibrate, or it had some kind of other special function.
It was insane, man. It was absolutely insane. Yo, so talking about the Game Boy Advance, I know we want to keep going. We don't want to hold ourselves up, but I gotta talk about some games, man.
Yeah.
Because Game Boy was cool. Game Boy Color was awesome. But Game Boy Advance, which rolls into Game Boy SP, we'll get to that, obviously. But man, this system, this handheld is the number one for me.
It is the pinnacle.
It's the pinnacle
of my childhood handheld gaming experience.
It launched everything that I loved and everything that I wanted from handheld gaming. There are games like Sonic Advanced that I used to play, and I was like, holy crap, this is Sonic from basically Sonic Adventure, but in this mobile format. He was cool. There was Golden Sun, man. A JRPG I fell in love with, and they released a sequel to it. I think the sequel came out like the next year, and it followed the spoiler alert. It followed the villains of the first game. I mean, just awesome games. Super Mario World. They had GTA on there at some point. Like, man, it was crazy. Like every game on there was cool. They had, of course, all the Dragon Ball Z games. They had like tons of Final Fantasy games. They had I'm going on a tangent here because obviously, fast forward 2021, here we are. Boom, Nintendo Switch. Nintendo Switch doesn't have these games on there.
Nope.
Yet. Why? Nintendo, why? Why are you doing this to us? You know your fans from the early 90s all the way to 2000s will pay you thousands to play those games.
All the money for these classic games.
I swear I will.
Yeah, and like you said, just speaking of the best, I mean, yeah, so Zelda games, obviously. Yeah. Pokemon games, without a doubt.
Yeah, easy.
But games like Advance Wars.
Oh,
Some of the first like tactics games where, turn-based, you had to build units. Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. One of the first times you saw an RPG with Mario, with the Mario IP.
Okay.
We have Metroid, we have Final Fantasy Tactics games on here.
Yeah.
I mean, but then there were two series that are I still have these cartridges.
Okay.
They're still among my all-time favorites of all time.
Wait, is one Fire Emblem?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
That came to the Game Boy Advance. One was Fire Emblem. And this is so technically, to be fair, the Fire Emblem that came out in America was not the original Fire Emblem. I think at this point it was like Fire Emblem 6 or something. I'm sure I'm way off on that, but it was not that came out later. They made a remake of that, but it was Fire Emblem for Game Boy Advance.
Okay,
and it is one of like I just picked this game up randomly at like an EB Games, used. I saw this cartridge. I was like, oh, that art looks cool. I picked it up on sale, and I took it home. Now, so this is a tactics fighting game, and it's one of the games to introduce the triangle, which is like A beats B, B beats C, C beats A. So
arrow,
like like
or whatever. Yeah,
axe is good against spear, like spear is good against sword, sword is good against axe.
Yes.
But this game, so in this game, it was like a grid system, and it was turn based, and you'd have these little units. And, you'd move them around and you'd attack other units on this, like, you'd move them along to these spaces. And then it would go into this little animation where you'd watch these little sprites attack each other. The, like, health would go down. It was based on, like, what weapons they had, the statistics they had. Blew my mind at the time. And I still stand by that those original sprite graphics looked better than some of the like 3D stuff they try to pull to this day, because it was this specific style mastered to a T. But that was one of the games. The other series that came out on Game Boy Advance was Mega Man Battle Network.
Was that advanced?
That was Game Boy Advance.
All right, let me pause you right there, Sam. Let me pause you. For those of you who do not know Mega Man Battle Network, because I'm sure there are a ton. Battle Network was basically a JRPG version of the Mega Man series. And for those who don't know about Rockman, quote unquote Mega Man, those were side-scrolling, I guess, action platforming games that were incredibly...
Those old arcade platformers.
Yes, and they were incredibly difficult. But God, man. When they switched to Battle Network, it became a story-driven, tactical RPG. It was just
it's such a unique combination because you have this story element where you're going around like a lot of the sprite games, like a Pokemon or something. You've got a little character
like
and you're talking to people, you're going to these different areas. But then stuff would happen and you'd have to jack into the Mega Man world. You have to go to these places. You press a button, there'd be this awesome animation, and all of a sudden you'd be controlling Mega Man, and you'd be in this in the digital world, and you'd be running around and you'd get into random battles. And the battle system was one of the coolest. Because you were on this 3x3 grid, this sort of like imagine like a tic-tac-toe grid, almost like 3x3 squares, and you could move around in it. So you could like push a button in any direction, and Mega Man would like move in that direction.
Yes.
And then on the other side, there's like a matching 3x3 grid of enemies, and they would be shooting attacks at you in real time. And so you had to be moving around, dodging, and as you were doing this, you had your battle chips. And they were your move set, and you could customize it. It was like almost like a deck of cards. You'd be like each one had a different move, and you could customize, and then you'd get a random, like it was like drawing cards. You'd get a random set of them, and they, some were like these sword slashes that you had to get up close and use. Some were like blasters. It was the coolest like system because it it started off simple. You could learn. It was pretty easy to dodge stuff. You had these very basic attacks, but by the end of the game, the amount of complexity and the different moves you had available, the combinations you could employ, and like the speed at which the bosses came at you had to be a pro at that game.
You had to be a master. That game, you're following a boy in elementary school. You are a student. You have friends. You're walking around this town. Your dad is a major scientist. It's a kid's game.
Yep.
But it did not have a kid's game combat system.
Nope.
That system was bogus, yo. Like your deck
bonkers.
was not fleshed out. You would get curb stomped. And that's one of those games. I think when you died, you went back to your whenever your last save was.
You basically reset the level.
That was one of those games that definitely woke me up. That I love games like that too. That I can recall, and I was like, man, that game kicked my ass. Like that game told me like, no, you're not gonna just hit a button and win. You're gonna have to learn. Yep. You're gonna have to. Not only are you gonna have to learn the the action-based combat where, yeah, like you said, it's a grid, so you have to be moving. You see the opponent's about to hit you in a straight line, so you move, diagonal, and you're sitting there waiting to dodge. But also on top of that, you're gonna have to craft a deck.
Yep.
That will support your needs to beat a specific boss. This deck will not work every time. Like, it will work 90% of the time, but when you fought a boss, you better start getting specific.
you had to have the perfect. You had to create a deck that would hit that boss.
Exactly.
But to their credit, what I loved is this style was coming out right at this perfect time when around because the first Battle Network came out in 2001, and around this time, Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, these trading card games were hitting this stride.
Yeah.
And so in real life, you were collecting these cards and you were learning the same lesson. You had to create a deck. You had to say, okay, I can't just put, I have to make a deck with a strategy. It has to, have cards that work together so that, because I can't pick, I have to draw randomly, and what I get has to slowly come together into something that can beat the other person.
Absolutely.
And we were playing all these different card games. Yu-Gi-Oh had its style, Pokemon had its style. There was, Magic at the time was big for a lot of people, a lot more complicated, but Magic the Gathering. And so as a kid, you were learning this kind of next level of strategy. I have to prepare, and I have to put together a strategy on how to beat something.
Absolutely.
And then this game came along, and it was this same element mixed with all these other awesome RPG story beats and a lot of other cool different mechanics that evolved as the series went on.
Man, thinking back to Yu-Gi-Oh, dog.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just, so Yu-Gi-Oh was an awesome show and everything, but it wasn't until the Game Boy Advance games, I think it was Sacred Cards.
And
there was one other one, I can't remember which one it was. I think it came out after Sacred Cards, either after or right before. But I think there was 3 games that came out for Game Boy Advance, maybe more. But I know when I was a kid, there were 3 back to back, and they all led up to some major tournament that was following the show, the anime. But god damn, those games were so good. Again, similar to Battle Network, they turned that show into an RPG where you're some random duelist working with all the characters from the series. And it just respected the young player that was me or you.
Yep.
It was hard. It was, again, you're crafting a card deck while also playing an RPG where you have to wander around and figure out, okay, where do I go next?
Yep.
Who do I talk to? And once you figure that part out, man, you were crafting a deck. And all that while you're playing this on a Game Boy Advance or a Game Boy SP, if you were lucky enough at the time. I think the Game Boy SP came out 2004 or something like that, 2003, 2004. And again, same gimmick. They knew all right, look, y'all want a flip phone? Y'all want to here's this Game Boy SP. It's the shape of a square until you unfold that sucker. And the screen is way better. It felt comfortable. It felt cool to flip it out. I mean, I had guys, we would take that sucker out of our pockets, one-handed, whap, flip it out, man. We'd be whap it. That shit would have been illegal today. It was so freaking cool to have. It was like
to
a
get
whole,
together with your friends too, and
Yes.
and everyone would just pop, and you had your different color,
popping it out, man.
You had your red or your blue or your silver, whatever
know
color
I
you
had
got,
red.
and you popped out and you just flipped it open. And can we also just say that the Game Boy SP had the best quality of life improvement?
Yeah,
a backlight.
That's what I'm saying, man. That backlight was night and day. Thank you, Nintendo, because now I have insomnia. I stayed up all night.
Now I can't go to sleep because I can't see the screen. I just turn it on.
Man, if I'm laying in bed, I need a screen blasting on me. I turn my TV on because it's reminiscent to me sitting there with my eyes glued on my Game Boy SP, because that backlight was so crispy, it was so bright, it was so colorful that every night I would wait until my mom, okay, you're going to sleep. Yeah, mommy, I see you later. She closed that door.
No Game Boy.
I'm whipping it out. I'm not masturbating. I'm whipping my Game Boy out. I'm beating it up. But not in the way you would normally do it at that age. You know what I mean?
With the A button and the B button and the D-pad.
Ain't that the way you would normally do it? Or I was either catching them all or I was becoming the best duelist all throughout the night. It was awesome.
Man, and also along with that, with the SP, was the rechargeable battery. Because up until that,
port.
I mean, you had to be popping in and out batteries, but no, with the SP, you had the charging cable and the port, and that changed the game because now parents realize they're like, oh, like I'm not gonna have my kid come and be like, I need more batteries, and you didn't have to carry that. Now it's just like, oh, if your battery's getting low, you're just like, hey, where's your outlet? I just got to plug in here real quick.
That brings up a very good question. I'm assuming Nintendo. Hey, viewers, listeners, this is not the spot for facts. Okay, you can do your own wiki dive or whatever the hell you want.
I can't tell you. Fact check us on the research.
Fact check whatever. I can't tell you if the Game Boy how much later the Game Boy SP came after like a flip phone, because flip phones were taking chargeable cables as well, AC cables or whatever, but so I don't know if Nintendo followed them, and I can't say. I'm trying to think. It raises the question: what is more important, the rechargeable battery or that backlight? Because both were incredible.
That's the question.
Innovations
that package deal.
It was a package deal, man. Like if you had to pick one or the other, which you didn't have to, it's like, man, I can't even imagine like the Game Boy SP without. I feel like I want to say the backlight.
Like I want to say the backlight was the real improvement that I noticed. Yeah. If I'd had to swap out batteries, fine.
Right.
But I don't think it would have had that slim design. Because think about how chunky the Game Boy Advance had to be to have like the screen and all the hardware behind it and still fit a thick tube, all that AA battery, them curves of those batteries in the back.
Absolutely. The whole bakery was open for that Game Boy. It was an awesome system. The SP, like Game Boy to Game Boy Color to Game Boy Advance, awesome stuff. Good job. SP, my mind shattered. I think I went through at least 3 SPs.
Oh yeah.
I had a silver. I had I think it was a blue, and the last one I had. Oh no, I'm sorry. I had a silver. I had a red, and then I had a red with like a tat on it. It was like some other Pokemon design or something like that.
Special editions. There was like the Nintendo one. The Pokemon one.
Man, I was going through those things because they were so cool. Like, I would buy another SP just because it looked better. It had a design, or the color was a little more shiny than the other one. Like, the Game Boy Advance and the Game Boy Color and all that stuff, even though we talked about how cool the colors were, some about the SP, they were making that paint job pop. That was the Corvette.
It had that slick. It wasn't matte anymore. It was like that shiny, chrome reflective.
Oh man, yeah. I'll go further, man. Honestly, I know we're not there yet, but the SP is probably the best looking. I would say it's the best looking Nintendo handheld system. It's better than the 3DS, which was a clunky mess. Even the later 3DSs, which look better, still didn't touch that SP to me, and even better than the Switch, which is now overtaking the 3DS. I loved it, man. I loved that SP design. Screen was tiny. I get it. Like, you gotta expand that nowadays. Nobody's gonna look at a tiny little whatever. I don't know if it's 4 by whatever.
But that was the thing about handheld gaming, and that's what made it so great. It was designed for that. They knew exactly how much they could fit on that level of a screen, and that's what you wanted. You didn't want to have to carry a whole case to get your 3DS or your Switch and your extra cables and your charging cable, because the battery only lasts like an hour and a half, and get all that into and then still have that in the backpack. You wanted something you could pop in your pocket. You could go over to your friend's house,
pop in your pocket,
and whip it right back out, whip and flip.
right. Hey.
But like innovation just is a nonstop, ever moving forward.
Straight up.
And what it moved into was the Nintendo DS.
Now hold on, I'm gonna have to stop you right there,
real
quick, because there's an honorable mention that I need. I'm gonna give it a quick 1 minute shout out. All right, look, most people don't understand this. VMU. All right, VMU. All right, anybody who knows this, credit to you. Back in the day, the Dreamcast had what was called a VM freaking U. It was a memory card with a goddamn screen on it. And the screen was attached to buttons. It looked like a damn Game Boy. I kid you not. So you would plug that sucker into your controller, and as you saved, you would see a little character pop up like, hey, congratulations on saving. You'd be doing a little dance or whatever. But the coolest shit about it was there were little crappy ass mini games, depending on what you had on there, that you could play. So you could pop that sucker out, boom, 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 boom. It had buttons on it and everything. It was so freaking cool. Like, I know that if you go back and you look at any VMU crap now, it's gonna look like
art. But credit to that at the time for being one of those out there innovations. I mean, we're talking like the kind of risk they took with like the Wii that paid off. But at the time, anything was possible. You could be like, hey, let's put a Game Boy on our memory card. Why not?
Anything was possible, and people were trying new things. That's what I loved. And credit to Nintendo with the Switch. Like, the Switch is something that they tested new waters with it. Like, it paid off.
And you know what? If we're gonna give shout outs, there's something else I gotta give a shout out.
Okay, give it a shout out, man. Let me hear it.
I gotta give a shout out to the Nokia N-Gage.
No, you don't. hey, let me stop you right there.
Absolute worst idea that anyone has had. Because you know what they wanted to do? They did. So the Nokia N-Gage, right? And I don't even remember. What was it? This was like, this was right around the time of the Advance. It was like 2001, 2002, somewhere around there. The Nokia N-Gage was Nokia's idea that they were like, look, everyone loves handheld gaming, so we're gonna make a game system that's also a cell phone. So now you can have your phone that also plays games. Because you know what gamers are busy doing? Having friends.
Oh God!
And it was, and if you look up this thing, it just looked so hideous. It had a vertical screen.
It was nasty.
There was like this weird orientation. It had this horrible D-pad.
It had like
all
10
these
buttons
like
or some
messy
shit, right?
buttons, and then it had the whole cell phone buttons on the side.
Yeah,
so when you're trying to figure out what you need to press to actually do something, you're probably accidentally dialing your mom,
right?
And the best
imagine
part
that shit, man. You playing a game and you sitting there losing. Fuck, and you call your mom on accident, and she pick up, hello, what are you up to? Fuck, mom, fuck. And, like you even know she picked up, you still screaming. Like, man, that whole device was ridiculous. I think it got discontinued really fast too.
It did not.
I don't know if it lasted like 2 years, maybe.
Well, and the best part was so when you had a Game Boy SP, right?
Yeah.
How'd you change the cartridge?
You pop it out?
Pop it out.
Pop it right back in.
Pop it right back in.
Out the bottom of that sucker.
It fit perfectly right in the bottom. Seamless.
Yeah.
You want to know how you change the cartridge on the N-Gage?
And I tap its butt right afterwards, too.
Just,
give
it
just to make sure it's working.
It was snug in there.
Yeah, right. Right.
You know how you change the
Give
cartridge
it that power.
on the N-Gage, right?
How do you do that?
So you got to pop the back off.
Wait, what you mean? Like a Game Boy? You just
you got to flip it over. You got to pop this back case off.
Okay.
Then you got to take the battery out, and then
what?
behind the battery, that's where you put the cartridge in.
Wait a minute. So wait, what?
Yep.
So I never owned one. I thought, full disclosure, I thought when I first saw that N-Gage, I thought it was the coolest shit in the world, man. I thought it was so cool. I was like, gonna call my homies while I'm playing my game. I'll be chilling at the park. And then it was maybe the second or third week after its official release. I forget who had one. Somebody, there's always that kid who gets whatever. And I saw it in person, and I was like, this is the dumbest shit I have ever seen in my little young boy body. I was like, this is stupid. My young gamer brain was like, I know this is going to fail instantly. And I never looked back. So I never knew how to change the batteries, change the cartridge, do anything with it. I don't even know if I've ever played. I think there was a racing game I tried on the N-Gage. And that was demo,
and it was
some demo or something like that.
But to my credit, I'll give the N-Gage one thing, is that it did wake me up what those sneaky salesmen at EB Games and at GameStop were trying to do back in the day. Because I was a kid, so when I would go and I was like, these guys are my friends. They know about games. Like they're like yeah, like this is great. And I'd be like, it is then. It must be. Like you're older and you like games. You know what you're talking about. And then the N-Gage started to come out. And, and they had them, like, for display at all these stores. And they were really trying to get people to buy into this. They were like, it's like a cell phone. And I would go in, and they were like, this is, like, it's a cell phone. It plays games. You got to get one. Like, this is going to be the, like, the Game Boy beater. This is going to be the next big thing. What? And that's the second I knew. I was like, you are some lying motherfuckers.
Y'all are some...
Because
dirty
even
liars.
I know that this thing is a piece of crap.
Anybody who had their hands on that sucker. Look, to our viewers out there who are N-Gage defenders, who love N-Gage, fuck you.
What are you doing?
What are you doing? Hey, check that in. Get a Game Boy Advance. That'd be better. No, I'm glad y'all appreciate it. But that thing, man, that thing literally lived and died faster than the PS Vita. And that's a feat.
And that is a rare feat.
That's a feat.
That is impressive almost.
So it lived and died faster than what was it called? The Nintendo Wii U, I think.
Another have a handheld controller that's.
Yeah, I wasn't even gonna bring that console up, but you know what? It basically kind of was the first iteration of the Switch. So, and that's as far as I'll go with that.
Yep.
That's as far as I'll go.
So all right. So we got the Game Boy eras coming to a close. The VMU.
And I apologize for not covering, for us not covering other things like, I'm sure all our viewers and listeners know, Zodiac, Gamer King, Leapster, the Pixter, the GP30. Man, y'all don't know none of these other ones. These other handhelds sucked. There's really only a few that we have to worry about.
How many of our viewers know what the Game Boy is?
Seriously, at this point,
our viewers are like, there was a time before the iPhone.
Right. I'm playing my games all on the
your phone's
iPhone
flipped
13.
open. You didn't have a touchscreen.
I swear. So this is just a reminder to y'all what came before 2015. But yeah, not to cut you off, man. So I know we're about to get on. If we're moving past the N-Gage, and we're moving past the Nintendo SP. Well, there's only there's something big. There's actually two competitors that came out in 2004, a year after the Game Boy. I think it was a year after the Game Boy SP, actually, maybe a year or two, and they were battling, man. They were fighting hard.
Yep, as we're getting in those 2000s, we got Nintendo's coming in.
Oh, okay, what they got?
And Nintendo's got the DS. Now, if you had to guess what DS means.
I don't want to say it on air, but dick sucker? I'm not really, well, digital system?
Dope system might be a good one.
Yeah.
But no, I'll say it. I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
It had two screens. You might want to say it didn't have a solo screen.
So you're saying it would have a triple screen?
No, two screens. Wait.
Solo screen.
Yeah, that's one screen.
Quadruple screen. What is it, man?
It's dual screen, man. It's dual screen.
Oh, that's what DS stood for? The whole time I was telling all my family and friends it stood for... Anyway.
No, it's standard for dumb shits you're still buying.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. That makes sense. I mean, I bought one. So, the DS, man. The DS was something else.
But you had the DS coming out. But now we have a new competitor in the market. And again,
boy.
I'm not talking about the Cybeco. We're not talking about the Game King.
I'm talking about the Gizmodo.
We're talking about... Yeah.
Oh, you talking about the?
I'm talking about Sony stepping in and saying we're not just making the PlayStation, we're making the PlayStation Portable.
And let me say that in a different way. Sony came out. They said, "Listen, y'all. Hey, listen up, everybody, listen up."
Yeah, what Sony? What?
We're coming out with a new console, handheld.
A handheld?
You want to know what it's called?
Yeah.
PSP. That's what these motherfuckers said. Perverted as hell. PSP. Who the fuck was to say it? Nintendo DS is sitting here. And Nintendo Game Boy
I got
SP.
my DS. Yeah.
Oh man, I got my PSP. The damn teachers freaking would give me detention for saying that shit, man. PSP, I can't say that. It's too close to penis.
Like, what'd you
or
say?
anything inappropriate. I'm sitting there in class. What are you doing? Oh, I'm playing with my PSP.
Yeah.
What are you saying?
You're
You gonna pee?
No. Put that back in your pocket.
Hey, yo, Sony, you played me, but the console, man, this was a battle, dude. Honest to God, this was a fight. Like
This was tough because you had, and this is the battle that rages to this day, which is on the one hand you had a gimmick, you had this clever new
Straight
thing
up.
where Nintendo was like, oh, like one screen isn't enough. Everyone's like, your screen's too small.
Right.
How about two of them? But not only that, one of them's a touch screen, and it was a whole new layer to their
Time
games.
out.
And
Tap
it,
me out.
like, think about games. I mean, games like WarioWare. You know, these games where you like they made the most of it because you had this this visual stuff on the top, but then you were typing and swapping and tapping and clicking and flipping and
Slapping and
dropping your
sweating.
system every 5 seconds.
Right. And let's not pretend though, even though it was a gimmick at the time, and I would almost say it's more of a gimmick today because like the Switch still has a touch screen and all that stuff or whatever. But man, like it did, even though it was a gimmick, it revolutionized what was possible for not just handheld gaming, for gaming period. WarioWare, you would draw like on the screen. Or I think they had I'm not sure if they had Ace Attorney on there. I think they did though for that one. And there were just things like actions you would do. The World Ends With You.
Yeah.
The combat in that game.
Tapping on those
You're
symbols.
tapping, you're pushing, you're swirling, you're twirling. Like with a stylus.
Yep.
And those are like I'm not advocating for that style. Like I probably would prefer maybe not to do it. But it opened my mind to what was capable for these handhelds. Like these handhelds like okay. So PSP.
Yep.
PSP drops, not a touchscreen. Takes UMDs, I believe they were called.
and they were weird. So UMDs, if you've never seen one, you got to look it up.
Tiny
it was like
discs.
a tiny baby disc.
Yeah.
But then in a plastic case
Right.
that had this, weird like marshmallow looking shape, just kind of like
yeah.
it's like almost like a little dome.
Very strange technology. But the PSP didn't have any gimmicks.
But it had
the controls are simple.
Big screen.
But it had a
these
big screen,
crisp graphics.
And it had crispy
graphics. It had
power. It really is. It's the same battle we're seeing today between the Switch and the PS5. Technically, we have a console that is super powered and hopped up, with more gimmicks than obviously the PSP. And then you've got another one that is solely gimmick based with pop it here on the dock, take out your Joy-Cons and play. And it's endless. We're talking about 20 years ago, damn near, and they're still having the same battle. But both consoles were so refreshing in their own ways. We were used to 2D graphics.
Yep.
And even with the 3DS, like the best graphics we got out of that console were in the latter years, like way later, because that console lasted a long, long time. The best graphics we got out of the 3DS, which we'll get to, was like Ocarina of Time. But the PSP was giving us those level, like God of War already was touching those graphics. Like I want to say Legends of Cold Steel came out for that console as well.
It was that weird system to me because there were so many fun games, and it had that power that the DS lacked. It could do these 3D games, but the biggest problem was it had this funky joystick. It was like, oh, we're not just gonna do the D-pad anymore.
Oh yeah,
we're gonna give you this little, but it was like a nub, like it was this little joystick nub, but then you only had one. And this, this came out like 4 or 5 years after the PlayStation 2.
Right.
So, like in your mind, 3D games, you're already used to having two thumbsticks. You've got the one you move with, and you've got one that controls the camera. But then you have this portable system that's like, hey, we can do graphics. We can do these 3D games. But, you ended up with these weird camera angles, this like fixed stuff because you had this one little nub joystick. and that's all you had to work with.
Right. You're sitting there, you're playing, you're going from playing God of War 2 on the PS2 to playing whatever it was called. It was like God of War, I think it was Chains of Olympus or something like that. Ascension. I can't remember which one it was. And the graphics were phenomenal. The gameplay was phenomenal, but you're playing with this little dinky stick. Yep. And it was the same with Final Fantasy. It was Final Fantasy Crisis Core. And you played as Zack from Final Fantasy VII, and it was this awesome story about a character from the beloved series of Final Fantasy VII, and the combat was revamped, and everything was awesome. The graphics, again, still to this day, the cutscenes and the gameplay graphics to me were still at least, if not better, than the 3DS's version of Ocarina of Time, which we'll get to and I loved. But that's how awesome that console and how powerful that console was. Like at the time, there's Metal Gear Peace Walker that was like giving us PS2 level graphics on a console. It was mind blowing. But and Birth by Sleep, like all these awesome games that really looked almost identical to their PS2 counterpart, but just narrowed down. Like everything was limited and broken into sections.
A little bit.
But man, what they were able to do with that hardware was unfreaking believable. Whereas like on the 3DS side, like the graphics kind of sucked, and like, but the gimmicks were so fun and refreshing.
The thing is, when the DS came out. And it, and it's fighting that like the PSP's like, we've got these graphics, we've got this big crisp screen that almost fills the whole thing, and it had this sleek look. Whereas the original DS, it like
big if bulky you've seen it, rock,
and it had, like it didn't even have a flat top, like it had that flip top, but the top was like angled. It had this
looked like a whetstone for a blacksmith.
It was durable, I'll give it that. Like your UMD disc would have broken after 5 days, but your DS was solid.
Yeah.
But what Nintendo carried forward was they said, okay, we're going to give you these two screens. One's a touch screen, you get a stylus, you can play these DS games. But if you like run out or you get bored, you can pop any Game Boy Advance game right into the bottom.
Yeah, that reverse.
And we've got that reverse compatibility.
Yeah.
And so you were fighting this Nintendo legacy that had dominated the handheld market for, since 1990, since 89.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because Nintendo is basically still doing that. Like they're living. I mean, you look at the Switch, and there's like 10 games that came out for it. Like, honestly, people are begging for a Star Fox, Metro,
it's still,
F-Zero.
I think even this year, it's still the best sold system.
Yeah.
Granted, you can't buy an Xbox or a PlayStation right now, but...
Yeah, or the Switch. The Switch has been sold out. But also, like, the games for it are, like if you bought a Switch today, you're buying, like, most likely your AAA game is going to be Skyward Sword. Or Mario Odyssey, which came out at launch. Like, there hasn't been, like, any real big showstoppers. Like, Nintendo has always been good on living off their legacy. And they'll release, like, one Zelda game. And that Zelda game will carry on. Like, I think it was the Wii, I want to say, had Skyward Sword. That was the only exclusive Zelda game to that console. And, like, it barely got the one that came out for GameCube, which was Twilight Princess, and people hated it. And so it was like, for the most part. And so it's like they always live off these big legacies, which is like a strength to them that they have. They have this amazing backlog of characters. And these handhelds, like, they excelled at taking that stuff. Like, whereas like the Switch right now, we're waiting. Think about it. For the Switch, after all these years that the Switch has been out, we got one Fire Emblem game. Whereas like the 3DS had, the 3DS/SP/3DS has, I don't even know how many Fire Emblem games you could play.
5 and counting or something.
Look at Pokemon. We've got like maybe, at this point, maybe 3 Pokemon games for the Switch, and like 2 are like really not even real Pokemon games. Like, and yet on the 3DS to the SP to whatever, like the backlog carried that 3DS for years. It was incredible. Sure, the 3DS also had incredible games, but yeah, that backlog was so powerful that like Sony's competing in a way that like technically, by a technical standard, the system was just slapping the 3DS. Yep. And even with the 3DS, like the touchscreen would get so messed up after a while, like scratched up. It was durable, but it was also cheap in other ways. But that backlog was so powerful, man. It was so powerful. It is to this day.
It stepped up into that next evolution. Now we had these two main competitors. You had the power, the graphics, the sleek PSP. You had just like that, the history, the legacy of the DS. Yeah. And so then they stepped it up to the next step, and you got the 3DS. So you had the touch screen now, you had the two screens, but now the top screen was 3D.
Yes.
And then you had the Vita, which was like, okay, we're gonna put thumbsticks on both sides. We're gonna make our screen a touch screen. We're gonna have that cool, like, the back is a touch pad, so it's kind of like an extra button you can program.
Yes.
And now we're basically gonna say, okay, we're committing to straight up as much power as we can put into a handheld console. We're gonna start porting old, like, PlayStation games onto it that you can play. And on the DS side, they're like, we're going to start re-releasing stuff with 3D. We're going to do this cool, like, cool new thing. And so now you had this just next level of tech.
It's funny because, so when the Nintendo DS came out, it was incredible, right? It sold, first of all, credit to Nintendo. They targeted children, and they still do, and children love their stuff. Like, even adults obviously love their stuff. And so the 3DS, last I checked, sold over like 140, 150 million units, something between that range. I know that the PSP sold something around 80, right? So basically half, which was fine. That was a good choice because at the time PS2 was just kicking straight butt, so it didn't really matter. And it was Sony's first handheld, where that was Nintendo's third, fourth, whatever it was. When the 3DS came out, it was over. It was over. The 3DS came out, the PS Vita came out, the Vita again. They basically rinsed and repeated the cycle. Like, the Vita came out, it was giving us PS3 level graphics, like Killzone and Uncharted were on that sucker, and it looked incredible. It was giving us touch screens and touch pads and all that cool stuff that you would expect would sell. And even to this day, people will talk about how awesome and powerful the system was, but the games were toast. There were no games.
It was not
they had
great.
Nothing.
Because they were, and the problem is, like, let's look at markets, like you said, right? Nintendo is targeting kids, so they're coming out with all these like WarioWare, Pokemon, all
robust.
these like all these amazing kid-friendly games that parents feel comfortable with. They're like, okay, I can buy my kid this
Mario,
this 3DS.
whatever.
They'll play Mario. They'll play these games that like aren't gonna like freak me out. Whereas on the Sony side with the Vita, they're kind of like these pared down, they're still these great graphics, but you're either playing these like ports of like PlayStation games or these like toned down, it's like Uncharted mobile or like it's the kind of the mobile version.
Right.
But the problem is like the Vita's market, right? It's like more adults because it's like, okay, like these are more adult games. And so it's like it's the gamer that wants a handheld device but wants to play something a little more sophisticated. But as you're growing up, you're either affording or through your family you probably have a real game system out. You have a PlayStation 3 or like whatever system, maybe you even have like a computer, if you're going that route. And so you're like, you play these mobile versions, you're like, well, I could just be playing the real Uncharted or I could just be like, I could be online with my friends on Call of Duty or something. And you're kind of like, well, like, what is this? Like, I guess, I can take my nostalgia on the go. I can start playing these old PlayStation games, but it's kind of this restricted, this tough market to deal with.
I'm gonna come at it from a funny angle actually on this because I'll tell you how Sony fucked this up. I truly, honestly, if I could bet money on this, I would put as much as I have on this. I think Sony fucked up because they did not re-release games. Like, it's funny to think that, like, if you bought a digital version of Legend of Dragoon, Final Fantasy 1 through 9, you could put all those on your Vita. You could have every Final Fantasy on there. You could have every PS1 game on there. All your PS1 backlog, which at this point in whatever it was, like 2010 or 12 through 12, whenever the PS Vita came out, there was a huge backlog of PlayStation games that people cherish. Final Fantasy VII, one of the top-selling games of all time. Like, but they did not re-release it. You could download it on there, sure, but they should have, like, almost honestly, they probably should have not allowed for you to do that, and they should have just re-released it on like a whatever. At that time, I think it was UMDs still, or
now it was cartridges. It was the
yeah.
Vita cartridges.
They should have built out some beautiful limited editions, some standard editions with beautiful cases and all this stuff. Final Fantasy VII.
If that had been their
Vita.
focus from the get-go, this is the system to play the old games on. So to relive the classics, to just take
and give us new editions.
Yeah.
If I saw a copy of Legend of Dragoon in a Vita case, like with Dart on the cover. Yep. For those of you who don't know, Legend of Dragoon, Chrono Cross, Chrono Trigger, these are all great old JRPGs that people cherish. They're on multiple consoles now. But
originally
back in the day,
the PlayStation 1.
Yeah. And Chrono Trigger was, I think, Super Nintendo. But nevertheless, like my memories of those games, specifically Dragoon, Final Fantasy VII, any of the Final Fantasies, like Tactics, all that stuff, my memories are all tied to PlayStation. For the most part, they all came out for PlayStation. So it's like at that time, you should have just re-released them. Like, people might argue that like the backwards compatibility was a selling point, but they should have just focused on new games and then reselling those same games on like in a new format. Because like it would have been a fad. Like we saw how Final Fantasy VII remake performed, and we've seen many re-releases of Final Fantasy VII where we bought and like I have one on Switch, I have one on my PS3, and I think I even have one on my like PS4 or 5, whatever. Like I bought the game so many goddamn times
on so
maybe
many
even
systems.
on my mobile. Like, and y'all missed out on this for your PS Vita because it was backwards compatible. And so nobody, and they also did not promote that. So like, I mean, they did, but it was like, okay, I have it on my PSN account. I'll download it one day, blah, blah, blah. The people who I know who have the Vita still to this day, and I know like 3 people, they only use it to play PlayStation 1 games in a portable way. If you just had marketed it that way, because at the same time, look at the Nintendo 3DS. If you wanted to play Pokemon Sapphire, which was not a Nintendo 3DS game, you would have had to buy that. There was at that time, there was no Nintendo account where you would just download your games to the Nintendo 3DS.
And they're still not great at that.
And they're still not great at it.
Those digital re-releases,
Exactly. And they're killing it over that kind of stuff. The PS Vita it's funny because I hate that idea. I actually love that I can buy a Vita today and download all those games, Suikoden 1, 2, Dino Crisis. I can put it all on my Vita. I don't have to pay a cent. And I love that. But as a company, and unfortunately, to succeed, I think they would have had to thrown it in the consumer's face in a brand new package, similar to how Nintendo does it, and they could have succeeded. But they just did not do that.
Yep.
The system's awesome. Like honestly, it's one of those things where it's like you can say what you want about the PS Vita, but like if you have PS1 games, like you can download all those suckers on there. It has YouTube, it has all that stuff that you could put on there that the 3DS did not have. It had a backlog. Like the PS Vita had a backlog, it just didn't promote it.
You could do the like remote play connection with your systems.
All that stuff was so cool. It was way beyond Nintendo 3DS, but they did not promote any of that stuff, and they so the whole point is the Nintendo 3DS sold something over like 75 million. The freaking Vita sold 15. So you went from being a competitor at least at halfway point, like okay, we didn't sell that many units, but wait, to just being
fizzling
wiped out, dude, wiped out.
So fast forward to where we are now, and we're at a very interesting place where there was the controversial Sony decision where Sony announced that they were ending the PlayStation 3 store and the Vita store. Yeah. And then an announcement that and this was just a couple of months ago, an announcement that they then reversed after a huge negative backlash. And they reversed. But even though they have not turned these services off, if you go on your PlayStation 3 or your Vita, the stores do not work or barely work at best.
Right.
You know, I think there are games that I've tried to download and I've been able to purchase them but not download them.
Right.
You know, the stores are barely functional at best, and you can see why they were ready to just turn them off. And you know, Sony has pretty much given up on their handheld market. There's no plans to, you know, come out with a new handheld. But then we have Nintendo's announcement, which is that they are ending production of the 3DS.
Right. And they announced that long ago. Yeah.
And so now we're at a place where the, you know, quote unquote handheld market is essentially either what you can get on your phone.
Yeah.
Or the Switch, if you know, if you want to call it a handheld.
Look, man, it's tough. I think it's okay. So starting with the first point, yeah, it sucks. I hope that Sony's able to figure out how to get this rectified. I hope they can figure something out about fixing that store. I haven't tried. I have a PS3 at home, and I have yet to try it because I bought all the games that I wanted basically before when they made that announcement. And that works fine. Like, as long as you bought a game before, you download that sucker at any point. Like, it's in my account. As for buying games recently, I have not tried it. But I love that I have access to all those games on my PS3, or if I bought a Vita, or one thing we haven't really mentioned because it's not really a handheld is the PS Vita TV. You know, or the PS TV, like you can just plug that sucker in via HDMI, power, boom, you got all the access to all those games on your TV. I think that's really cool. I hope they can fix that. I think it's admirable for them to say like, hey, we got the backlog or the backlash from us announcing this cancellation, and they're trying to figure out something out. Hey, sorry to anybody who's trying to download those things. At least they're trying to do something. Back when the Nintendo Switch first dropped, they did say that they were done with handheld consoles. They weren't going to do the 3DS, and that the Nintendo Switch was going to take over. I'm a little upset because the 3DS had a crap load of games. Obviously, it's reverse compatible as well, and none of that, after all these years, is on the Switch. I bought a Switch full price. This is my second Switch. I can't play a single Pokemon game from those days on my Switch. I think that's some BS. I think they need to hurry the crap up. I don't know why it's taking so long. If you're not going to have a 3DS,
games, none of those 3DS games,
nothing. And like we know what's going to happen as 3DSs begin to die out and Nintendo stops selling them. What will happen to the price? Those suckers are going to skyrocket along with the games until Nintendo releases those suckers digitally. And I just think they've done a piss poor job. Look, I love Nintendo games for the most part. Okay, that's a lie. I really like 5 Nintendo games. I like Smash Bros. I kind of liked the new Zelda, and I have Mario Kart. Like, I literally own 3 games. I bought the console twice, and I've had it since launch. But there's nothing else for an adult male to play like me. Like, there's just nothing else for me to play. That's the way to put it. But nevertheless, like I love Nintendo. I wish they could release a more mature version of Zelda. I wish they would release a new Metroid and F-Zero and Star Fox. Whether that be, handheld or not, obviously the Switch is portable. I wish they would do those things, and I wish they would give me the older versions. I'm still waiting for Ocarina of Time, either basic N64 or 3DS remaster. Like, they're not giving me any of this stuff. They released this Mario 64 Sunshine bundle, but it's like limited. Like, it was only released for a limited time. Like, there's just so much stuff that I just don't understand. I feel like they're milking their fan base in a weird way. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope that they start releasing all this stuff and like that you can download all this stuff. But I have no sympathy towards Nintendo for this because they've had time, and they're making a ton of money off this system too. So it's a little baffling to me.
Well, and my big concern and really it's looking for the future of handheld gaming, and just the sadness that that the next generation of kids, like my cousins, are growing up, and just recently my cousin or my nephew, they just bought a Switch, and he's just starting to learn Mario for the first time. But just thinking that him and his friends, they're never going to have that experience we did of just being able to pop out that, that Game Boy Advance SP to flip it open to play games
For
together,
sure.
to link that cable together and trade some Pokemon. It's like the thing I'm worried about is because I see all this streaming technology, and and some of it is so impressive. Just like how if you have one of these next gen consoles, you can take your laptop, remote connect to your console from like somewhere else, plug in a controller, and have as long as you have decent internet, have like full access to play stuff remotely.
Yeah.
But as they move towards these models, like the service models, these like the Switch and this like hybrid console, we're just like the ability to be like, we're gonna go camping and we're just gonna bring our DSs, and if it rains, we're just gonna be in this tent.
Yeah,
we're gonna we're just gonna play games and joke together,
right?
Or or just being able to have this thing that I can fit in my pocket.
Yeah.
And now I get that everyone's like, well, what about the smartphone? You're kind of ignoring that, and like that has so many games, but the vast majority of games on mobile are these pay to win or like service based, like free to play, but like pay to play well.
Right.
These just these like games that really try and hit you with these microtransactions, or ports of old games which are fun, but without physical buttons to press. Like when I'm using these like touch screen emulated like controls, it just does not give me the same satisfaction that having a console in my hands did.
It's again too, like, I'm not trying to hate Nintendo. Like, look, if you like the Switch, that's great. There's plenty of games. There's Monster Hunter. There's Super Mario World 3D and Animal Crossing that people love and all that crap. And I only say crap as etc. I kind of mean it as crap because I don't like those games, but I understand why people do. But like, nevertheless, it's good that people can enjoy those. And yeah, you can bring your Switch on a camping trip. Your battery will die real fast unless you bring like some backup power source. But you can do that kind of stuff, and you can link wirelessly now. But there's something that's just not the same to me, man. Like, all right, okay, so here it is, right here, right? And this does pertain to handheld gaming. When we were younger, we played Pokemon Red. Like, that was like Pokemon Yellow, Red, and Blue, right? That's where we started. Like, even if it wasn't our first game, like, it was cool to play that. Today, like, in 2021, this is 20 freaking years later, what I would love is for you and I, Power, to be able to link our Switches, play Pokemon Red V2, Red Z, whatever, and we're wandering around the world together, catching Pokemon together, interacting with each other and other players and stuff like that. Like, Nintendo has not made those leaps. They have not. They have not taken it's the rinse, repeat cycle. For Zelda, I had an incredible experience with Link to the Past all the way up to Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. Like, yes, Breath of the Wild is awesome, but like, I still expect more. I don't know. I don't know how to put, like, I expect better graphics. Like, I thought Twilight Princess's art style was awesome. And, like, even though maybe it was grittier than most people may have liked, I thought it looked great. I thought that was, like, a good, and Breath of the Wild's art style is also unique and awesome, too. It's like it's very colorful, very alive. I love to see the shrubbery move and all that stuff. But, like, and the gameplay is great. For a handheld, you pop it out, boom, you're playing a full-scale Zelda game. But I still want more. I want that to be like either the Four Swords, you and I can link up in this beautiful open world, or I need more story and more structure, just a little more structure out of the dungeons. Like, the dungeons were like an hour a piece, and they were just the same, like this weird gritty map. There was no character to them. I'm sorry, there's just no character. And like, these are the big Nintendo games. And so, like, that's not to say that anybody else is doing handhelds better. I think the Switch is probably the best handheld to date because there's really nothing else. Like, 3DS is discontinued. PS Vita is gone. So that's really all we got at this very moment. But I still think we could be doing better. I think, I don't know. Yeah, you're right. And everyone's using their cell phones now. There's Fire Emblem on your phone. Nintendo themselves, there's Super Mario on your phone. There's definitely Fire Emblem. I'm not sure if there's Zelda on your phone yet. But there's
not. There soon will be.
Maybe Metro. Like, there's so many Nintendo games coming to mobile now that even they realize, like, people aren't really as interested. But there is a market there, and I don't know how you do it. I don't know if you create a device that is similar to the Switch that is specifically for multiplayer games to connect friends. Like the Switch is that, but you even get more specific, or you release better games like for multiplayer access. Like I said, Animal Crossing's cool. Smash Bros. I love Smash Bros. And Mario Kart. But the Switch has been out for a while now. It's been out for a while, and like I'm just not seeing enough games like that. You and I will sit down and play. Like we'll play Smash Bros. And Animal Crossing and stuff, but like it's like at this point I feel like we should have a backlog, right? Like a new backlog. And they have the IPs, they have the characters, they have Star Fox, they have Samus Aran, they have Captain Falcon, they have Banjo-Kazooie, or maybe they don't have Banjo-Kazooie, sorry, they have Donkey Kong. They have all these great characters that only live through Smash Bros. For me, like at this point.
So, what would you say, coming to where we are today, and if we had to give a rating to the future of handheld gaming, and where we're going based on the the amazing history that we've experienced, and what we've seen with the latest trend?
Yeah.
What would you say for the future of handheld gaming?
So my rating might be a little surprising. I'm actually gonna give it a 4 out of 5, even after all that shit talking I just did.
Really?
Because technology is at a point where handheld gaming is, the potential is unlimited. Like the graphics we're getting out of the Switch could be better, and we will probably get a Switch Pro, but the fact that we can dock something and get 1080p and then pull it out and get 720 is something else. The fact that our cell phones all have OLED screens now is something else. Like the potential is high. I'm very excited for the future of handheld gaming. I'm excited for like the frame rates of handheld gaming. Apex Legends is on Nintendo Switch. Like Dragon Ball Z, Fighter Z is on Switch. Like there's so many games that I would never imagine. Witcher 3 is on Nintendo Switch. Like the console is robust. I just want to see what the next step is. I want to see them make more exclusives that are pushing the hardware, and adding more interesting multiplayer aspects to all these games. I am very excited. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. I think the Switch is an awesome console idea. Even though mine is gathering dust, it's an awesome idea. And I'm very excited to see. It's similar to how I feel about like VR right now. Any VR. Like VR, I've always been so excited. No matter how many times I've bought a VR console, it just gathers dust. There's 5 games to play. There's really nothing much more. But it's such a cool idea that I'm so stoked for when somebody, whether it be Nintendo, PlayStation, Microsoft, whoever, figures this crap out, this handheld gaming situation out, it will be awesome. And I hope it's not Apple, and I hope it's not Samsung. I do not want to play all these games on my cell phone on a touchscreen. I like having a controller. I like gimmicks. But I'm excited. I'll have to give it 4 out of 5 VMUs.
I see. I get what you're saying. The technology is there, and the ability to just pop the Switch out and then to be in bed playing a game, to the graphical fidelity and the quality that you could see on like an iPad or like a tablet or a phone. Sure. Like the option is there, but to me, just the fact that our smartphones, they just don't have these buttons, and to me it's just like that will always be the fact that I would have to plug in a controller to just have something tactile to experience while I play. The fact that so many of these games just they're not going for these fun multiplayer experiences. They want to make money, right? And the fact that so many adverts just for the Switch where it's just people sitting there around it playing on the Joy-Cons, and yet do you see that? Do you see people out there bringing their Switches together? Where are the party games? Where is this multiplayer, this play together, this cooperative gaming? I just the technology is there, but the drive and the push for these companies to create these cool handheld and portable experiences, I haven't seen it. Yeah. I wish I was as hopeful as you, but I'm just a little worried. I think that the future is not going in the direction to give that same experience that I had growing up for the next generation. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5 Nokia N-Gauges, and I hope that I'm wrong.
I hope we never see the Nokia N-Gage again. Yo, so as always, though, just, remain optimistic, power up, and when things don't go your way, reset them. So that's to you, Nintendo. Until next time, you got power, you got reset.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week. Thank you for listening, not watching. Because this is a podcast.
Hey, maybe they're watching us in the windows, man. You don't know that.
You know what? Once we get the camera set up, then you can watch us talk. But right now, thank you for listening. Not watching.
Be good people.